This is my husband's favorite joke. But it's the longest joke on God's green earth. So that's why we can't. It's so good.
Do you live in the valley? Where do you live? Please, sorry.
He says, Doc, sometimes I feel like a spider, even though I'm a moth, just barely hanging on to my web with an everlasting fire underneath me. I'm not feeling good. And so the doctor says, Moth, man, you're troubled. But you should be seeing a psychiatrist. Why on earth did you come here? And then the moth said, because the light was on.
That was the whole, and it was like the longest ever. Like he has problems. The moth has problems with his wife and all this stuff. It was a riot. But he would, like Norm would. Kane's still dying. He would like check in. Like he didn't have to. He didn't have to check in. Like I was actually just like looking at like some of the messages. He didn't have to check in. Every now and then he'd be like, "Hey, checking in," or "Hi, Dana, wanted to check, see if you were okay. Troubling days." Every now and then he would. I think when he saw online that it was getting heavy, and then he would just drop a note. He didn't have to do that. Like he didn't know me from he didn't until we had kind of talked online. I never met him in person. I never had the pleasure, but we always talked a message. And he didn't have to do that. And I don't know, he was an incredibly nice person, and he noticed everything. The last conversation that we had was about Bitcoin, because he was asking me about gold and about Bitcoin, and we were having this like huge financial conversation, and it was just funny. But he was a genuinely nice guy. He just was hysterical, and he was talented, and he was liked by so many people. He was a brilliant writer. When he did Weekend Update on SNL, that was the best Weekend Update. I think him and maybe Kevin Nealon and Dennis Miller were the best. No one can come close. They were the best ones. Although I think Norm was the best, because he would read a headline and then he would have a joke. It would be the most inappropriate punchline. But he would deliver it so dryly, it made it acceptable to laugh at it. You know what I mean? Like it would either be like, that's private or so. I mean, it's just funny. Super nice guy though. And he inspired my last book, Grace Canceled. And I wrote about a time, because he had done some jokes before, and apparently like in the past, in the 90s, as the mob comes for everybody. And he ended up going on The View of all places. And because people were telling him, oh, you got to apologize and all this stuff. And so he was clarifying, and he had defended, he was like defending some of these he was defending like some of the comedians that had been attacked, and some of them justifiably maybe, with the Me Too stuff. And he also had defended Roseanne Barr. And when he defended Roseanne Barr, that was too much. And he defended Louis C.K. And so he went on The View to discuss this. And it was like, they called it his apology tour. And this is what inspired me to write this book. I wrote it in the whole beginning of the book because I had grown up knowing Norm Macdonald to be a major smartass. And I think sometimes I wonder if he wasn't pulling one over on everybody on The View, because he is that smart. He was uncharacteristically penitent on The View. That's not, I was like, to the point where I'm going, Right. But he said he was surprised. Now, if you're unfamiliar, like Roseanne Barr started a lot of people, gave a lot of people their career. Regardless of your personal opinion on her, that's just how things happened. That's how some of these people's careers happened. And Norm Macdonald got his start writing comedy on Roseanne Barr's show. And so he was defending a friend. And after she had made the comment she did about Valerie Jarrett, and was saying that her comment, while inexcusable, he was basically saying stop canceling people entirely out of society. And they attacked him for it. Because apparently there's no nuance, and no one could understand the difference between condemning an action by a person and then condemning the entire person. And so he said, look, Roseanne and Louis have been friends of mine for many years. He said this back in 2018. They both made terrible mistakes. I would never defend their actions. And he's like, if my words sound like I was minimizing the pain their victims feel, I'm sorry. So he ended up going on The View, and it was weird because Whoopi Goldberg had to be very, very serious. And this is where, and I give her credit for this is where her professionalism kicked in. And I will say, Whoopi Goldberg is loyal to her friends. You can hate her because of her politics, and some of the things she says is, I think are wrong. She will not throw her friends under the bus. And I think the other women there on that panel were wanting to, and Whoopi wasn't going to let it happen. She was keeping Joy Behar down. And she was like, well, people don't get it. It's comedy, and she's talking about comedy, and she's talking about, the changing nature of comedy and humor. And he made her work. He made her drive that show. He sat there. This is what I meant when I say he was almost too penitent. He sat there and he was quiet and he just spoke like this. And, I don't deserve to, blah, blah, blah. And the stuff that he said, he was like, he wouldn't promote what he was there to promote. He had a show coming and he wasn't going to promote it. And he forced Whoopi to do it, whether that was by intent or I don't know what was in his heart, and she was shocked. And if you go back and watch that clip, I want you to watch how she reacts, because that is a genuine reaction of someone who's like, okay, I don't know. And that's when you're like all your years of doing a television show and remembering your ins and outs and your transitions. That's the stuff that becomes like reflexive. And so she had to go kind of in that mode to keep the show going. And what I got from that was that he was in his response. He was becoming what the woke mob always says of people, that they can never be redeemed. And he was acting. It made me somewhat wonder if he was doing that on purpose to fit the mold of someone that was beyond redemption, and so they're not worth the effort. That really made me wonder that.